Hey everybody, welcome back. Daniel here. Glad you're here with us. On this channel, we deal with tough questions about faith, God, the Bible, and we began talking about a hot topic last week, abortion. All right. Now we looked specifically, what does the Bible say about life within the womb? And I encourage you to go check out that last video. Today we're going to talk about the same topic, abortion. We want to look at what does science say about life within the womb. This is a pretty serious topic because, obviously, culture wrestles with it, individuals wrestle with it, churches don't know how to respond. We want to know, as a believer, how do we respond? How do we walk as Jesus walked, stand on truth, and yet love our neighbor? So let's get into today. We're talking about what does science say about abortion, and to deal with this specifically, we want to look at when does life begin, according to science. Life begins at conception. This is not some religious point of view. This is a biological point of view. The fetus, which by the way means offspring, meets all the requirements for something to be a human life. In fact, all the genetic material to become a fully grown human are present at the moment of conception. You don't believe me? Let me point out some things people said. Pro-abortionist Peter Singer, who's a philosopher and a public advocate for abortion, stated this: "There is no doubt that from the first moment of its existence, an embryo conceived from a human sperm and an egg is a human life." All right, this is coming from a pro-abortionist. You got Bernard Nathanson, who was a pro-abortionist who became pro-life. He stated this: "There is no longer serious doubt in my mind that human life exists within the womb from the very onset of pregnancy." These are people that are learned people that know the stuff. They're in this field. And you look at scientific textbooks, they continually confirm that human life begins at fertilization. In the National Geographic, they put out an article entitled "In the Womb," and they state this: "The two cells gradually and gracefully become one. This is the moment of conception, when an individual's unique set of DNA is created, a human signature that has never existed before and will never be repeated." Isn't that beautiful there? This never existed before, it's never will be repeated, meaning that it's unique. It's not the mother, it's not the father, it's its own DNA. It's its own being. That is amazing. Let me point out two more quotes from medical experts and what they state. All right. Professor Matthew Roth stated this: "It is incorrect to say that biological data cannot be decisive. It is scientifically correct to say that individual human life begins at conception." This is from a medical expert. And the last one I'll quote here is Dr. Alfred. He stated this: "I have learned from my earliest medical education that human life begins at conception." So you see, person after person, data after data continually confirms that life begins at conception. Someone might say, well, Daniel, it's just a clump of cells that are within the mother's body, are part of the mother's body. Well, let me lay out for you just a little bit of the development over the weeks within the womb and show you how clearly this is not true. It's actually its own being, all right? Its own unique being within the mother, right? From the very earliest stage, conception, you have, again, the 23 chromosomes and 23 chromosomes, mom and dad, come together, but then they form a unique genetic code that's neither the mother nor the father. The baby, or the fetus, which means offspring, has its own genetic code from conception. That's amazing. 8 days later, you have what's called the implantation, where the fetus now implants itself into the uterus, but before it does that, it emits a chemical that kind of weakens the mother's immune system so it can attach itself to the uterus and won't be rejected by the mother's body. Why do I point that out? Because to the mother's body, it's a foreign body, and it has to lower the immune system enough so that it won't destroy or kill the foreign body. Why am I pointing that out? Because it shows that it's not a clump of cells. They're just part of the mother, but it's unique and it's its own being. Now, you fast forward a little bit more, weeks 5 through 8, first the heart begins to beat, pump its own blood. Kidneys, eyes, brain, limbs begin to develop. You have hands begin to form. You have feet begin to form. You have the permanent kidneys form. You have ears begin to form. You have brain waves start. You have the body begin to form. They hiccup. The embryo can begin to smell. You have fingers, toes, knees begin to develop. And by week 8, every organ is present. This is all what's happening within the first 5 to 8 weeks. This is mind-blowing. And you go a little further, week 9, the fetus or the offspring begins to grasp at things with its hands. The eyelids close. In week 10, you have rapid growth taking place. Fingernails and toenails appear. By week 12, all the organs and limbs and bones and muscles are present and will continue to develop to become more functioning. By 13, the vocal cords form. This is amazing. By 16, week 16, the mother really can begin to feel the baby kick, and the ears are developed that they can begin hearing the mother. That's amazing. By week 20, it's shown that the baby can feel pain because the senses, or 5 senses, begin to develop. So pain can be felt by week 20. And then you have by week 22, there's been known babies to survive outside the womb at week 22. One article by Family Research Council stated this, that the nervous system appears between days 12 and 17. By day 21, by day 21 or 21 days after conception, the heart starts beating and pumping blood. By day 30, arms, legs, and brain begin to form. By day 35, mouth, nose, ears begin to develop. You see what we're pointing out here? And within 40 days, measurable brain waves begin. By 42 days, the skeleton and internal organs are present. The brain controls limb movements. So you see what's happening here. You just see the development of the life continue to grow from the moment of conception all the way to birth and after birth. So you see what I'm saying here is someone that has 4 kids. I have 4 kids. And someone has 4 kids. Every time we've gone to an ultrasound and you see the baby, or the picture of the baby on the screen, you're not looking at this picture and you're like, that's an interesting clump of cells. No, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Look at this life, this little life within the womb. And you see it as you go back for checkup after checkup. You just see this life continue to develop and grow, which will absolutely blow your mind. It doesn't just become a life at a certain amount of weeks. It's a life from the moment of conception. Some people might argue that it becomes a life when it could survive on its own. First off, so all before this point, it wasn't life, it wasn't human life, and then all of a sudden, bam, it became a human life. That doesn't make a lot of sense at all. But on that point, it survived on its own. A newborn can't survive on its own. A newborn is fully dependent on the mother. I have a 1-year-old, and this 1-year-old is fully dependent upon her mother. Therefore, the argument that one becomes a life when it is independent or can survive on its own holds no weight. All right, this is my 1-year-old, fully dependent for life upon her mother. And as we get older, many of us will be dependent upon others and medical professionals to help us. We don't then become less of a life at a certain point, or we don't just now become a life when we could do things on our own. We are a life with value and worth from the moment of conception. You don't gain it a certain amount of weeks, and you don't lose it a certain amount of age. You have it from conception all the way to the tomb. What we have happening in the womb from conception to birth is development and growth over time. When you're outside the womb and you're born, what's happening? Development and growth. You are not the same as you were when you're 1 year old. You have grown. You have developed. You are different than when you're 1. You've grown and developed. That's what's happening within the womb. It doesn't become a life at a certain amount of weeks. Its life is from the moment of conception. It has this unique DNA code that only that baby has. It's unique to itself. It's not part of the mother. It's not part of the mother. It is a separate being within the mother. It's a life within the womb. Another interesting fact on this is that it's illegal, because you didn't know this, it's illegal to execute a mother on death row. Say the mother's done a crime and she's on death row if she is pregnant, because the fetus, the baby, living within the mother should not or cannot be executed for the crimes of the mother. Interesting point. Why am I pointing that out? Because it's a life within the womb. Atheist Christopher Hitchens stated this: as a materialist, I think it's been demonstrated that an embryo is a separate body and entity, and not merely, as some really do used to argue, a growth on or in the female body. So what I want you to see here, from medical experts, from scientific textbooks to atheists, is clearly pointed that life begins in the womb at the moment of conception. And when you begin to look at the weeks of development from conception all the way to birth, you see this life developing and growing over each week. But it didn't just become a human life at week 6, 10, 10, 30. It became a human life from the moment of conception. His own unique genetic code is at that point. So what do we see here today? Scientifically, life begins at the moment of conception. Human life begins at the moment of conception. When the 23 chromosomes from mom and 23 chromosomes from dad come together, they form their unique, it's a unique genetic code, being not his mother or their father, it's unique genetic code. This is the moment life begins. And as you look within the weeks of development within the womb, this life is developing and growing and growing and growing until birth, and then all the way after birth. This is a beautiful thing that God has designed. And because life begins at conception, we know all life has value. No matter how small, no matter how big, no matter how old, no matter how young, life has value and worth because God created life. God breathed life into humanity and made us in his image. And therefore we have value and worth. You don't get that value and worth at a certain amount of weeks within the womb. You get the value and worth from the moment of conception. You have that value and worth. So I hope you see from this video and the last video that both biblically, in scripture, and both scientifically, life begins at conception. Therefore, it doesn't matter how old or young or what stage of development life is at, that it should be protected, it should be valued, because human life has value and dignity given to them by God.